Okay, so once we have imported the photos into Lightroom, we're gonna go right away to retouching. So to go to retouching, you have a menu up here called Library, Develop, Slideshow, Print, and Web. So we're gonna go straight to Develop because, as I said, I'm not gonna go into every detail of the software, just the essential that you need to know to get started and do some serious retouching and some very nice photos. So we're going to start off with this new photo. So this is a DNG RAW file taken in Paris on a very nice sunset, and the photo overall is pretty dark. The reason why it's pretty dark is because when I shoot photos on sunsets, either I do HDR photos, which is basically taking 3 exposures, one which is very dark, one which is normal, and one which is very light. Now, I actually did HDR this scene, but for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to take the normal photo, which is already a bit dark, and we're going to retouch it and try to get the most juice out of it. So once you have clicked into the develop model, you have a whole checklist of actions you can do. And instead of explaining what each one is doing on a theoretical viewpoint, I'm going to show you with an example. So usually I start off with the first steps of the checklist, which is the white balance. Now there is 2 sliders for the white balance. The first one is called temperature, and you see it says temp, T-E-M-P for temperature. Now I want this photo to be very warm because sunsets are warm. So I'm going to take the slider and move it a bit to the right to make the photo a bit warmer. I also like to get it a bit more red because usually sunsets are a bit more red. So I'm going to take my tint color and put it a little to the right to add just a little touch of red. Okay, now once I've done that, I'm going to move the recovery slider, which is, I'm not going to touch the exposure. The exposure basically changes the exposure of a photo. If I put it to the right, it brightens everything up. But you see, if I do that, it's going to brighten also the sky, which is not something that I want. So you can double click on the slider and it goes back to where we started. Now what I want to do is I want to darken the sky to get to the sunset, and I want to light up the whole bottom part of the photo to get more details and see what's happening on the back, on the bottom of the photo. So for that, we have a magic slider in Lightroom, which is Fill Light. What Fill Light is going to do, it's going to put more exposure on the dark scene parts of the photos without touching very much the sky, the very light colors. So let's move that to the right until I can see what's going on in this part of the scene. Next, I want to put in a bit more contrast overall on the photo. So for this, I'm going to move the contrast slider to the right. Now, contrast, as you may know or not know, is basically darken what's already dark and lighten what's already light, giving more color, because when you contrast a photo, it gives more saturation. The colors are more vivid. You know, the reds are more reds, the yellows are more yellows. So I'm going to put in a bit of contrast. Now the thing is, what happens is that I need to retouch the sky, but how can I retouch the sky without retouching the rest? The rest looks kind of fine to me, but not the sky. So for this, I'm going to use a special tool, which is the gradient filter tool. Basically, when you click on this, you have a whole new window opening up with various settings, and what these settings are going to be applying on a gradient basis. But first, let's put all the settings back to 0. So for this, hold on the Alt key and click on Reset. It's going to put all the sliders in the middle. I must have used them before. That is why it kept how it is. And then you have your mouse is now across, and let's put a little cross here. As I drag and move my mouse, you will see that there is 3 lines happening. Basically, this 3 line is a gradient. This is the start of the gradient, and this is the end of the gradient, and that's the middle point. Now for now nothing's happening to our photo because simply because we have not applied any settings to our gradient. So for example, if I take the exposure and move it to the left, it's going to darken the sky on the gradient. Not only it only does it in this part of the photo, but it doesn't do it very strongly everywhere. It just does it, on the gradient. It does it strong and a bit lighter until the end. So what do I want to do? I want to lower the exposure and I want to lower the brightness. Now brightness and exposure are basically the same thing, but for some reason, for this technique to work very well, it is good to move the exposure and the brightness. Now I want the sky to be to have a bit more contrast, so I'm going to add contrast, which is only going to act on the sky, and I'm going to add saturation. Saturation is basically making the colors more vivid. As I said before, the red's more red. So now I'm finished with this gradient filter, and I have balanced the very light sky with the bottom of the photo, which was too dark, which I've brightened up. So now all the colors, except the top of the trees, which we will fix a bit later, the whole photo seems to come to life here. So here is a little box. If I click on this, it's going to turn off the graduated filter, which I've just used. So this is without what we've just done, and this is with. What a change. What a change. So now that I'm happy with it, I can just close this. So this is a very powerful tool. I use it on all the landscape photos every single time. Now, the problem is that our sky is here, and now look, this trees is too dark, and this trees is too dark. Would there be a way where I could just correct that without touching the sky and the rest of the photo? Yes, there is. And it's with the brush tool. Here it's the same concept than the graduated filter. You have a tool which is big here. As I move the little mouse roll that I have, my brush is getting bigger or smaller. Now what I want to do is I want to brush back some lights into in the scene here. So what I want to do is I'm going to put the exposure a little bit up, and you can change the size of the brush. I do it with my mouse. I think it's a bit it's easier, but okay. So and you see there is two circles in my brush. Basically the inner circle and the outer circle is a gradient. It's not going to apply a very hard side brush, but it's going to go on the gradient. You could change that if you wanted by using the feather option, but I don't encourage you to do that. I almost never do that because all the retouching I'm doing needs to be not with a hard brush but with a feathered brush, because otherwise you can see the retouching too much. Okay, so now I have put in the sides. Now one slider which is important is the flow. Put your flow always between 80 and 90, because you want, flow is basically how much of the exposure is going to happen when I brush. I want real exposure to happen. So now let's brush this. You have one more option, which is auto mask. Now that's very important. I usually always leave it on. Basically what it's going to do is when I'm going to brush the trees, Lightroom is going to detect what's right under the cross here, the middle cross, and try to just brush on that part and not on the sky. So here, let's go and let's brush here a little bit. Okay, not much is happening. So when not much is happening, that means there is not enough exposure. So let's put in more exposure. And ooh, look at this. If I put it the whole way to the right, you see how it goes? I have brushed here, and now I can change on a slider basis how much I want exposure. This is incredible because you can really, I just want to put back a bit of light here. I don't want it too much, So what I usually do is I put a bit of exposure, I put a bit of brightness. I always mix both, it gives a more natural result. And let's keep on brushing. Okay, now you see I've just brushed here and it's way too much because this is very dark. So sometimes it's good when you do a brush. This brush is only going to be for the very dark part of the trees. So you can press on control on function Apple Z and undo this last brush stroke. Okay, when you brush on your photo, one thing you should know, which I've not mentioned so far, is that all the retouching we are doing is non-destructive, meaning that the raw file is never going to be altered. This is just algorithm functions happening on the top of the raw file without ever touching the negative original raw file. So this is something you should know. So basically, when you create a brush, it puts a little dot. When you put your mouse over the dot, it's going to show in red where you brushed. So I brushed here, and this is you can see the before and after. You know, this was very dark, and now it's a bit more balanced. So now let's lower the size of the brush. These trees are also very dark, so let's do the same thing here. Okay, and it's not working, and the reason it's not working because it's the same amount of brightness. Now if I lower the brightness, which I can do here, it's going to lower the brightness over there, but it also lowered the brightness here, which is now too dark. I don't want that. So let's put back the brightness back to where it was until these trees are correct. And now how do I erase what I've just brushed here? Well, just press Alt, the plus becomes a minus, and now I can take out what I've just did. Okay, so I did a brush stroke. Let's see here if I can put it on the very dark part of the trees. I just wanted to bring back a bit of light on these trees, you know, on Apple Z. Okay, so I'm pretty much satisfied, but I would like to brighten up these trees a little bit. And I've noticed that if I do it with such a power, it's going to brighten here also. I don't want that, so I need to create a new dot, a new brush. So for this, I just click on new, and it's going to create a new brush, meaning I can brush here on the trees, and it's going to create a new dot, and I can set the setting just for this tree, and it's not going to do anything to the other brush stroke we did here. So this is way too much. I just wanted to bring back just a little bit of light on the trees, and okay, let's put a bit more brightness. And okay, so now I'm pretty much satisfied. Look, before the brush strokes, all the brush strokes, and after the brush strokes. So now we have balanced out the whole photo pretty well. And so I can close that. So we have done a lot on this photo just by using two tools, the brush tools, the gradient filter tools, and just the general settings. One thing you should know is that on the left, you have a history. Basically, all the actions we are doing here on the right are being registered by Lightroom. And if you want, you can go back to import, which was the way the photos was before we started. Look at this. This is how we started. This is all what we've done on the photos so far. So let's go back to where we were. And this is where we're at. What a change. And that's the great thing about RAW files, is that RAW file has a lot of information which is hidden within the file. And you can reveal that with Lightroom. And that's the great pleasure working with Lightroom. Okay, so let's keep on moving. We're almost finished with this photo. One thing I would like to do is maybe put a bit more clarity. Clarity is basically going to make the photo a little bit pop. You know, it's going to make it a little bit more with details. And let's put a bit more vibrance, because vibrance, basically what it does, as you can see, if I push it a lot more, it's going to make the colors more saturated. I want these colors to be pretty much saturated, but maybe not that much. Let's see if I can put in a bit more fill light, you know, just to lighten up a little bit the dark side of the force here. Okay, that's not so bad. And usually when I do some fill light, I put in a little bit more contrast. Okay, we are almost done with this photo, and we only did that just with the first settings of Lightroom. That's amazing. Now, if I go down, there's one last step I want to do, which is a little vignette. What is a vignette? Vignette is to darken the corners of the photo. And I find that vignette always puts the viewer attention on the center of the photo, and that's very useful. So I go down here, and there is a post-crop vignetting function. All you do is put the amount to the left, and it's basically going to darken a little bit more the sky. And you have various algorithms, like right now it's called highlight priority, but you can change by color priority. See what you like the most, or paint overlay. Let's see now. What I prefer is color priority. I'm not going to go into details of what these do, but just try out every one of them and see what's best for you. Okay, wow, look, this is where we started, and in a few clicks, we started here, and in a very few clicks, without ever touching the original photos, without going into Photoshop, we did this. This is the power of Lightroom. Okay, usually when I'm finished with retouching a photo, I give it a note. You can right click on a photo and you can set a rating. So it goes from 1 to 5. Let's put in a rating of 1. I mean, this one is retouched. This is how I work. Once I've done my first retouching, I put 1. Okay, so let's move into the next photo. And so I can show you some more example of this. So let's take this photo taken on the countryside. And as you can see, again, this photo is very dark. You will find that a lot of photos that I take are originally very dark. Why? Because I expose for the highlights, meaning that if I would have put my camera into a lighter exposure, I would have lost a lot of details in the sky. And I know that Lightroom is so powerful that if I shoot in RAW, a bit dark, I can get the information back. So let's go back to the top of our checklist here, and let's move in the fill light like we did before. And look, magic. There's magic everywhere. It's coming back to life. Let's maybe brighten up a bit the photo. You know, it's a bit dark overall. Okay, and I'm not going to change the temperature and tint for now, because all I did was boost a bit the exposure, boost the fill light. Let's see if we can darken the sky a little bit to get more details. So let's use again the gradient filter. So let's click on Alt for reset. Now let's move a bit faster. Let's do a little gradient, here. And let's move the exposure slider to the left like we did before. Okay, not bad. Let's boost the saturation. We want the sky to be very blue. Let's boost a bit the contrast, and let's boost a bit the clarity. So all this is happening on a gradient basis. Look at this, before and after, a much nicer sky. So let's close this. All right, maybe I'm gonna put a bit of yellow into these photos, because I know that there is some fields here which are very yellow. So let's do that, and let's move the tint. There's a lot of green, so let's maybe add a bit more green in the photo. Okay, not that much, but a little bit. Okay, we still need to, it's still too dark. So let's move a bit the brightness of the photo a little bit more. We did the exposure. I always do a little mix of exposure and brightness. Let's boost the contrast of the photo. And when you boost the contrast of the photo, usually two things are happening. The photo is going to get darker and the photo is going to get more saturated. So then what I do is I boost again the fill light and a bit the exposure. Okay, so that's starting to be something. Now let's boost the vibrance. Okay, I did not explain before the difference between vibrance and saturation. Saturation is going to put all the colors more vivid on on an equal basis. Vibrance is going to do the same thing, but it's going to try to do it intelligently. It's going to see which colors is already very much saturated and sort of leave them alone and go and try to saturate the ones which are less saturated colors. Basically, it's saturation with the brain. So I never use saturation. I always use vibrance. I always find the result is better. Okay, so that's starting to look like something. This is where we started again, and this is where we are. Wow, what a change. What a change. Now, let's move a bit further down here, because we have not yet explored all the options in Lightroom. So tone curve, to be honest, does the same thing than the recovery, fill light, contrast, all we do, but it does it with a curve, which is a technique most used in Photoshop. I'm going to ignore this part for you, because to be honest, I never use it. I always use these sliders. I never go into these sliders on the curve. So let's jump that section. Next is we have HSL, color and black and white. So I'm not going to work into black and white because I have another photo that I want to do in black and white, not this one. Now, what is HSL? HSL stands for hue, saturation and luminance. And what is that? This is very important for you to know when you retouch photos what hue, saturation and luminance means. So let's start with the hue. Hue basically changes the color. Let's say that you find that your yellows have too much orange in them. If you want to change an individual color, let's move the slider of yellow. And basically, if I put it to the right, it's going to put more green in my yellow. If I put it into the left, it's going to put more orange in my yellow. So just check out what you want to do. Either go for green. I don't do this on every photos, and it's very hard to know what hue is going to end up doing. So all you have to do is you can move around each slider, see what it does. It does not do much on the red because there's not much red in the photos. Honestly, I almost never use hue. But saturation I use. Saturation is you can put more color. Let's say I want the yellows to be a bit more saturated because you know there is wheat in the photo, and I would like the wheat to be a bit more yellow. So let's go for the yellow and let's move it to the right. Okay. Now one thing you can do, this did not change much on the wheat because the wheats are probably a bit orange and not just yellow. So one thing you can do is you can click here on the little circle, and this is so easy and powerful. And you have a new tool, and you can just click on the wheat, hold on your mouse, and you go up, and it's going to detect whatever is under that mouse, and it's going to saturate it. Now look at this. Look on the right. Look these settings as I'm moving up and down. Basically, it detects that under my mouse there is orange and there is yellow, and it's boosting just that. I also want to boost here, so I click and I boost the saturation of whatever is there, which is a bit of green here on the trees. It's going to boost the saturation a bit of the trees. Okay, that's very nice. So you can either do it with the slider or using with the tool. To be honest, I always do it with the tools. So that's one thing. Luminance is basically if you want to make a color darker or lighter. There is, for example, let's say I wanted the sky to be even more blue. So I could just click on the blues here and make the blues darker, and it's going to make the sky pop even more. Let's do that. It's actually not so bad. Or you can do the same thing with a slider. You can click, take the tool here, click on the sky, move up to brighten the sky, move down to darken the sky, as you like. And okay, so this is hue, saturation and luminance. Usually I only use saturation and luminance. I don't go so much into the hues, as I said before. Okay, next is we have the split toning. I'm not going to go into the split toning. Basically what split toning does is like if you want to do a two color thing. I'm going to take this further on another photo. So just to finish off this photo, let's go down and let's have again a post crop vignetting. So tack, to make a bit the edge a bit darker. I still want the photo to be a bit lighter, so let's boost the exposure a little bit. Let's boost the exposure. I find the photo is too dark. Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad, my friend. And one thing you could do, and that I do all the time, is you can go into the brush tool and let's add a little ray of light on the wheat. So I click and I draw on the wheat, and now nothing's happening because but if I go into on the circle, you will see there is red. So I did brush because I did not change the slider. So let's boost a bit the exposure and the brightness and the saturation of the wheat, making the wheat a bit brighter. Well, let's do the same thing with the tree, you know. Okay, so here is before, here is after. You know, I added some light just if the sun was just right on the wheat and right on the trees. Maybe it's a bit too much, so let's lower the exposure just a little tiny bit. I didn't want to do that much. Okay, so now I'm done with that, you know, with just one stroke, two strokes of brush, one on the trees, one on the wheat with the same intensity, so I did not need to create a new brush like we did before. So I can close this. Okay, so basta. We are finished with this photo. Here again, this is where we came from. Wow. And this is where we are in the history panel. And we did never change the original negative file. So now instead of just doing right click, set rating 1, you can just on your keyboard press 1. And it goes to the next photos and it puts a little star here. As you can see here and here, there's a star, which means that we retouched the photo. Let's go on the next one. This is a bridge. Sorry, I pressed I. When you press I, it shows the info of the photo. When you press I again, it shows more info of the photo, and when you press I again, it takes it out. This is a photo that I took in Florida. Very dark again. Why? Because I exposed for the highlights, but you will see with the miracle of Lightroom, we can salvage this photo into a non-usable dark photo to something maybe a bit better. So here we are again. Let's boost the fill light. I usually always start with the fill light. So now I can see what's happening. Now, the thing is that the photo is way too blue. So let's change the temperature of the photo. And one thing you should know is I always usually do the fill light first before going into the temperature so I can see better the photo before changing its color. So it's a sunset. So let's go yellow to the right. Yeah. Big time. Let's go big time. Let's add some reds also. You know, it's a sunset for Christ's sake. Now that changed a lot already. Now, okay, so maybe let's boost a bit the overall exposure again. So the fill light is high, everything is high. Let's boost in the contrast. Okay, that's not bad. But now the bottom of the photo is fine, but the top of the sky is too bright. So there again, our nice graduated filter. So let's do a filter just on the sky. Here we are like this. Okay, and let's put the exposure and the brightness to the left. Okay, it's gonna darken the sky again. Wow, and let's boost in the saturation on the gradient, but it boosts the saturation. So that's not bad. Let's boost clarity so we have more details in the sky. And basically that's it. Okay, look at it. Before the gradient filter, after the gradient filter. I use it all the time, as I said. Okay, next, maybe I'm gonna boost in the fill light again. Now, thing is, and the contrast again, voila. Thing is, now, this was a really dark photos because, you know, the contrast, and now look at this. When I zoom, when you click on the photo, you can zoom. When I zoom on the photo, you can see there is a lot of noise. Let me check something here. Yeah, there is a bit of noise here. You see it's a bit dirty, and you can only see it really. I mean, I can see it a bit here. I don't know if you see it on the video, but when I click here, I really see it. This is the unfortunate part that when you underexpose a photo, it can become a very noisy photo. But there again, Lightroom has the magic. So you can go on to noise reduction and just boost it to the right, and it's going to take out a lot of noise. Look at this. Before, after. So it took out a lot of noise. Now there is still like some like red and green little parts here, and this is another type of noise. It's called color noise, and here is the color noise slider. So let's boost this to the right, and it's going to take out a bit all this the reddish. I don't think you can see it very much on the video. Now one thing you should know is when I'm going back to 100%, the noise is still going to be there. This is, I think, a bug from Lightroom. It's only when I will export the photo from Lightroom that the noise will be taken out. So bear with me here. The noise is still there, but it's not there anymore. Because when I will export the photo and I will show this to you later in a later video, there will not be any more noise. Okay, so now I usually go up and down on this sliders. Let's see if I can put it even more to the right on the temperature. I want it to be even more there, yeah, to the right. Or one thing I want to show you, which is pretty nice. Now the whole photo is becoming yellow. One thing you could do is go back here, put back some blues on the temperature, click back on the filter, and here is find the dot we created earlier, which is the filter, the gradient filter we did earlier. And there's just one option we have not looked yet, and it's the color option. And you will see that's an amazing function. When you click on it, you can select a color. Let's say I'm going to put a red color. And now look at this. It's putting a red on the photo on the gradient basis. Now this is maybe a bit too much. Let's go more into the yellows. And maybe, so as you choose a color, it's gonna, you know, this is very red, this is less red. You know, wherever you click, you see what the color is. If you find the color is too much, you can go down here. It's gonna put a less saturated color. So that's cool. Let's move this a little bit because I want the sky to get this color cast in it. And now the whole photo is not the same color. The back is a bit more bluish and the top is more yellow reddish. Look at this before, wow, after the gradient filter with just one gradient. So I like that. Now again, we have the problem that this is maybe a bit too dark, so we can use the same technique with the brush. Let's take a brush, let's boost a bit the exposure and the brightness, make sure that flow is high and auto mask is on, and let's maybe click here a little bit to bring back some details here, for example. Here, I mean, and you will see again a lot of noise, but the noise is an illusion because we took it out and it's going to be out when you export the photo. Maybe it's a bit too much of an exposure, but you see it gives more details on the wood here. I like that. So I can close this, and if I zoom 100%, you see the noise. Oh, no more noise. There is nothing. It took everything out. You only see it on a 100% basis, but it's an illusion. Okay, not bad. Maybe let's boost the overall exposure. You see how I go back and forth? Yeah, let's boost the overall exposure. Voila, and maybe a bit more contrast again. Okay, so this is where we started. Wow, and this is where we are. What a change, what a change. I'm gonna maybe lower even more the temperature so that the bottom of the screen, yeah, until I find a color that I like. It's becoming more blue, more purple, but I kind of like that. Some of the sunset are purple. Let's maybe put back a bit more of green here. It makes it a bit more natural, maybe not that much. Well, you know, just try out, you know, just move temperature and move tint until you have something that you like. Okay, let's say that this is what I like. Okay, let's put in some clarity so that there's a bit more details, and let's put in a bit of vibrance to make it even more wow. Okay, and maybe let's brighten up again a bit more the whole thing. Something like that, you know, so it's very bright. You know, there is noise, but when you click, there is no more noise. And actually, I made a big poster with that photo, and I can tell you, you don't see the noise at all. Now, we did look at saturation, at this hue, saturation, and luminance. I'm not going to use it on that photo. Split toning, I didn't go into it, and I'm not going to go into it. One thing you can do when you do noise reduction is you can boost the sharpening. I usually boost the sharpening around 100. Yeah, or 80 or something. And so yeah, look at this. With zero sharpening, the whole thing is a bit blur, and with 90 of sharpening, the whole image is a lot more sharpened. So I do my sharpening also in Lightroom. I like that. And lens correction, I'm not going to go into for now. And post-crop vignetting, we did go into. So let's put maybe a bit of a vignette here, yeah, to make it even more dramatic. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we're finished with this photo. Again, we started here and we are here. This is a major change. Okay, next is a similar type of photo. This is a street in Paris, in the area of Montmartre, a very old part of Paris, you know, from the 17th or 18th century. Nothing has really moved from that period of time. And there was a nice sunset. I wanted the sunset to come. Now, I took this photo because you can see the sky is very much on like has a shape of V. And so I'm not going to be able to use the graded filter. I'm going to bring back the light only using one thing. I'm going to be using the fill light, of course. So let's do that. Let's put in a bit of fill light. We can see already there's a lot of noise, but we're going to take it out. And I'm going to use the brush tool because a very known photographer once said, I think it was Joe McNally, who said that if you want a nice lighted object, light it partially, don't light it everywhere. And with the brush tool, it's very easy to light up. Oh, I'm sorry. I already did the brush tool on this one. So let me take it out. I was wondering also why it looks so good. Okay, I took it out because I drilled this before. So this is without any brush tools. All I did was the fill light. So let's put in a bit more fill light. Okay, and let's go into the brush tool again. So let's boost the exposure and the brightness. We have a brush, and let's brush. And let's bring back some of the light from the street so we can see what's happening. Let's boost the exposure and the brightness because it's still too dark. Let's go and let's do it for real here. Let's do it for real, okay. And tac, here I go. And I'm not touching the sky. I don't want to touch the sky because I just want to brighten up. Not everywhere, but it kind of make a dramatic type of lighting. Maybe a bit here. Yeah, not bad. And here a little bit. Okay, and on the opposite, let's click on New and press Alt to put everything to reset. And let's make it darker. A new brush, darker, and this time we're gonna brush the sky. So, and make sure that you're just brushing the sky. As auto mask is on, as long as your cross is in the sky, Lightroom is gonna do its best to detect the sky and to not go into the building so much, you know. So voila. Okay, let's see if we can make the exposure of the sky a bit more. Let's boost the saturation of the sky. Let's make it very nice. Oh, we have something weird here. So let's brush here again. Okay, we're starting to have some halos. So let's brush close to the halos. All right. Not so bad, maybe a bit too much. So you can just afterward change the exposure and the brightness, and it's only going to change where we brushed. Okay, not so bad. Here is before the brush strokes. Here is after the brush strokes. Kind of love it. So let's close this. Let's boost a bit again the fill light so we can see the buildings a bit more. And now let's zoom in and look at this. Oh, there is noise, but I think I already took it out, or maybe not. Let's check it. Yeah, noise should be at 0 and colors should be at 0. I've already retouched. Now look at all the noise. It's completely awful. But look at this. As I move the luminance slider, it's taking out the pure noise, and as I move the color slider the whole way to the right, it's taking out all the color sliders. This photo was completely unusable, and now it's not a bad photo. And let's put in some sharpening. Now look at this. The noise is pretty much out. You can see it on a 100% view, but you know, you couldn't see it before. Okay, let's see. Maybe I'm gonna go. I think the sky is too much saturated. It's too blue. So let's go back into the brush. Let's find the brush for the sky, which is this one, and let's put down saturation. I went way overhead here. Okay, and let's go back. That's the great thing about Lightroom. You can just go back and change something. You know, it's non-destructive. Again, non-destructive. Love it. Let's boost the clarity. Let's boost the contrast, and let's boost a bit the fill light even more, and the exposure and the overall exposure. Okay, that's not so bad. Now, there is one thing I've not showed you, and that's the lens correction. Lens correction, because I've actually already done it. So let me undo what I did. I am going to put everything back how it was, because I already, let me double click here on the slider to put it at 0. Okay. Now, this was, the original photo was like this. It was crooked, and it needed to be rotated a little bit. And on the profile, let's see on the profile. Oops, hold on, my computer is a bit slow here. So I'm just, basically what I did is I already retouched that photo and it kept some of the settings. Okay, let's see, let's go on the profile. Okay, voila. Okay, so this is the photo without any lens correction. That's what I want to show you, a bit of lens correction. So the first thing you could do when you go into lens correction is you click on Enable Profile Lens Correction. It's going to detect what lens you use, and it's going to try already to correct some of the things which are wrong with the photo. Next is you have to go into Manual, and there you can change a few things. The rotate is not at 0. I'm trying to put it at 0 by double clicking on it. Okay, so basically I need to rotate this photo so that the walls are straight. So here we go. Let's see if I put my rotate to the right, see what happens. Okay, let's put it to the left. Okay, not bad. I want this wall to be straight. Okay, a bit more maybe. Okay, now the walls are straight, but I don't know, the computer is lagging very much here. And but you see, then these walls are not very much straight, and that's because I was tilted up a bit when I took the photo. And to correct this, you can use the vertical settings. That's something I do all the time because I'm often very much tipped up when I do landscape photography. So verticals, let's move it to the left here a little bit, see what happens. Okay, or to the right. I always, put it to the right or to the left, see what happens. Okay, that's not good. That's not good. It's to the left, but just a little bit. You do it until your wall seems straight. First, you have to handle the rotate, and then you can do the vertical. Okay. Now, when you do that, the image is gonna have to be cropped a bit because it's gonna create some gray areas. Let's do it a bit more so you can see what I mean. If I would move the vertical the whole way here, for example, you see it would create a little gray area there. Now, make sure you always click on Constraint Crop. Basically, it's going to crop the photos so you don't see any more of the gray areas. That's something I use all the time. But let's put back the vertical where I was. So usually, this is the only two settings I usually use on most photos is rotate and vertical. Okay, too much vertical here. I'm just doing it until the walls are pretty much straight. Before lens correction, I was on the wrong box. After lens correction, tack. Now it's still, the wall is, I rotated a bit too much, I believe. So let's go back. I want this wall to be pretty much straight. Okay, here, now I'm good. Okay, so before lens correction, after lens correction. Okay, not much, but there again, look, the noise that you can see here when you move in is almost completely out. And I printed this photo, and it's actually pretty usable, even so it's a very dark photos. But I did this one because I wanted to show you the noise distraction of capabilities of Lightroom. Okay, that's basically it. So now I'm going to put 1 onto it. Oh, by the way, I forgot to put a 1 on this one, so I'm going to put a 1 also. Okay, next we're going to do an HDR photo using Photoshop. So basically the way it's gonna go is, but we're gonna do that in a different video. I'm gonna retouch 3 photos and then HDR them with Photoshop. But that's in the next section of our video on retouching.